Mehdi Hasan is one of the toughest interviewers around, and this week he spoke to Netanyahu's advisor, Mark Regev. Now, we'll show you 3 key moments from the interview. First, this is what happened after Mark Regev says the Gazan Health Ministry's death toll figures shouldn't be trusted.
You say Hamas's numbers. I should point out, just pull up on the screen, in the last 2 major Gaza conflicts, 2009 and 2014, the Israeli military's death tolls matched Hamas's health ministry death toll. So, and the UN human rights groups all agree that those numbers are credible. But look, your wider point is true.
Can I challenge that? Will you allow me to challenge that, please? Can I just challenge that? I'd like to challenge that. I'll try to be as brief as you are, sir. Those numbers are provided by Hamas. There's no independent verification. And secondly, more importantly, you have no idea how many of them are Hamas terrorists, combatants, and how many are civilians. Hamas would have you believe that they're all civilians, that they're all children. And here we have to say something that isn't said enough. Hamas, until now, we're destroying their military machine, and with that, we're eroding their control. But up until now, they've been in control of the Gaza Strip. And as a result, they control all the images coming out of Gaza. Have you seen one picture of a single dead Hamas terrorist in the fighting in Gaza? Not one. Is that by accident, or is that because Hamas can control the information?
You asked me a question and you
Gaza?
said you would be brief. I haven't, you're right, but I have seen lots of children with my own lying eyes being pulled from the rubble.
Because they're the pictures Hamas wants you to see. Exactly my point,
because they're dead,
they're the pictures Hamas wants.
But they're also people that your government has killed. You accept that, right? You've killed children, or do you deny that?
No, I do not. I do not. I do not. First of all, you don't know how those people died, those children.
Oh, wow.
First of all, we don't want to see a single child killed.
Well, that's just how extreme Israel's argument have got, right? So we've done segments on this before when it comes to the numbers coming from Gaza's health ministry, which, by the way, has lots of people in it who aren't from Hamas, right? There's also international monitors in there. Many of the Gazan health ministry was officials who were carried over from the Fatah, well, from when Fatah controlled Gaza. So it's not obvious that this is just some lackey for Hamas. And as Mehdi Hasan pointed out there, in the past, the Gazan health ministry has always been accurate when it has given the numbers of people who were killed in Israeli attacks. Also, they have provided the names and ID numbers for the people they say have died. So there is lots of reason to believe the Gazan health ministry's numbers. But what you saw there is how extreme the argument is from Israel, because they're not only saying, don't believe what Hamas tell you, they're saying, don't believe what you can see with your own eyes. Right? We've all seen with our own eyes, right? The images of children dead, the images of people who are killed after an ambulance is bombed, is hit with an airstrike, outside a hospital. We've all seen that. And Israel know that it's problematic for them that the whole world has seen the consequences of their bombardment. And they want you to say, yes, well, you might be able to see this as a dead child. But Hamas controlled whether or not you saw that dead child. So therefore, the child isn't really dead. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. It's incredibly disrespectful, by the way, to all of the dead children. But I mean, more significantly, it's just so warped that Israel think they can kill 4,000 kids. And then even when there is video evidence of those 4,000 kids, they can say, well, we can't trust that video because Hamas. We've seen it, right? We've also got aerial footage that shows us that they've destroyed half of Gaza, basically the entirety of Gaza City, right? We can see it with our own eyes. That's not the aerial footage, the satellite imagery isn't controlled by Hamas. I don't know how he's going to say that that's not really the case. Let's go back to the interview now. The context for this next clip is the Israeli military claiming to have found a chart under a hospital showing a rota with the names of terrorists on it. So it's supposed to be the names of terrorists whose job it was to oversee a hostage. Now, in fact, the chart just showed the days of the weeks. So the names were Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. They weren't names of people. Let's see how Mehdi Hasan challenges Regev on that claim.
Why did your military spokesman on Monday point to a calendar in Arabic and say, these are the names of terrorists on them? That's false. Can you accept that here and now?
I'm not aware of the incident.
Let's put up the image. We have the image. You have no comment. I don't read Arabic.
It doesn't help me. I have no comment. I'm not familiar with the incident.
Does your spokesman read Arabic?
Hang on, I have a question, Mehdi. You're a journalist. Have you made a professional mistake ever? Not intentionally, but have you made a professional mistake?
Exactly, and I own up to it.
Have you made a mistake?
So can you own up to the mistake?
So if I've made mistakes, you've made mistakes. But there's a difference between making an honest mistake and between Hamas that deliberately exaggerates numbers to suit its propaganda purposes. There's a huge difference.
So it sounds like
it's like
hold on. You said propaganda. Can we just deal with your colleague Ophir Gendelman's tweet? It's still up 7 days later. Why has it not come down? It's a Lebanese short film. We can put it on screen. It's not Palestinians faking their own injuries. Can we own up to that mistake and take that down? Is that not propaganda?
Once again, I understand that was also a mistake. And
so why is it still up 7 days later?
I'll speak to Ophir about it if you like. I'll speak to Ophir about it if you like. He's
Great.
A friend of mine and a colleague. I quite like him. He's a good man. He's actually very effective. Why is he effective?
Well,
he speaks mother tongue level Arabic. I agree. He made a mistake.
So the argument there was, yes, you've pointed out 2 mistakes we've made, but the difference between us and Hamas is we admit to our mistakes. Now, the flaw in the argument there is that they made a hell of a lot of mistakes. They keep making them, right? And they all are for propaganda purposes. The other obvious problem is that Israeli official who tweeted that video, which he called Pallywood, so offensive, saying, oh, this is Palestinians faking deaths from airstrikes. Everyone knew immediately, right, that was footage from backstage of a Lebanese movie. And that Israeli official has left it up for a week, right? So there was no deletion and apology. He said, oh, actually, I know, I knew that all along, but actually, I've shared this because some Palestinians are sharing this, saying it is Gaza. No evidence of that as well, by the way. The other thing he says, the difference between us is we admit our mistakes. Hamas doesn't admit their mistakes. Hamas is exaggerating the death toll for ideological reasons, and they won't admit it. Now, maybe the reason they won't admit it is because they're not doing it, right? And I don't say that because I think Hamas are this incredibly honest organization. This is a conflict. It's quite likely that both sides will engage in, what's called an information war. They will try and shape what information is released or is not released to benefit their side in a conflict. Completely normal. That will be happening, I'm sure. But he has picked an example, exaggerating death figures, which there is no credibility to suggest that they are doing that. Why? Because the American intelligence thinks that more people have died than the Gazan Health Ministry has announced. And there was a report recently that Israeli intelligence thought that potentially double the amount of people have been killed as the Gazan Health Ministry had announced. And if you look at all the footage from Gaza, if you look at the satellite imagery that shows that 50% of the buildings have been destroyed, it's no wonder that many people have been killed. So he's picked this example. Well, we're more honest than Israel because we admit our mistakes. Hamas won't admit their mistake when it comes to the death toll. Well, maybe it's not a mistake, right? We have every reason to believe it's not a mistake. Well, this is our final clip from the interview, which I think was actually the most significant moment in the whole thing.
We're out of time. Well, I'll give you one very straightforward last yes or no question for you. Joe Biden wants a 2-state solution in the Middle East. He wants it sooner rather than later, he says, to get peace in the Middle East. Does your government, does Prime Minister Netanyahu support a 2-state solution? Yes or no?
I think it's a time now for war. It's a time for victory. And when that's over, with Hamas defeated, with Hamas destroyed, when you've taken out the most extreme enemy of peace, that'll create room, I think, for more moderate and pragmatic voices to fill the vacuum, and that'll be good for peace.
So that's a yes or a no on a 2-state solution?
I gave you a good answer, I thought.
I mean, he gave him a telling answer, right? He gave him a telling answer. Again, that shouldn't be a surprise because we know, he's an advisor to Netanyahu. Netanyahu doesn't want a 2-state solution. He's wanted a 1-state solution the whole time, which is kicking the Arabs out of historic Palestine, right? We've shown you quotes to that effect before. And we're going to show you more again, in fact, on this show on another segment. But that has been their stated position. But we are in this sort of warped, sort of back to front reality where everyone in the West pretends that the Israeli government are desperate for a 2-state solution. And then this incredibly belligerent organization, Hamas, are against it. Now, of course, Hamas have done some terrible things. Atrocities were committed on October the 7th. But Hamas is no more belligerent when it comes to what outcome they want than the Israelis, right? Hamas, I mean, there is evidence actually that they have been willing to settle for a 2-state solution on 1967 borders. But within their, within their sort of documentation, within their constitution, for example, they aren't sort of supporting a 2-state solution in the same way that the Palestinian Authority and Fatah are. But neither are Israel. And so everyone says, oh, you can't possibly negotiate with Hamas because Hamas want to get rid of Israel. They want the whole thing to be Palestine. Well, then why don't you make exactly the same argument about Likud? Why should the Palestinians be expected to negotiate with Likud when Likud also don't want a 2-state solution? I think the other reason it's telling is because Israel are always saying, we need to get rid of Hamas so then we can negotiate peace. Well, he's saying we need to get rid of Hamas So then we can negotiate with some people who are compliant that they will agree to something which doesn't even involve a Palestinian state, right? He wants some Palestinian Bantustans, and he wants to make sure that they have used their full military might to take out anyone who might disagree with that. Essentially is how that reads to me. So the carpet bombing of Gaza is not about finding a partner that can come to the table and negotiate. It is about creating new facts on the ground to make it more likely that the Palestinians will completely capitulate to Likud's vision of a one-state solution where Jewish Israelis have supremacy from the river to the sea. Obviously, we hear loads of people complain, if you say from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, that's anti-Semitic. Well, day after day after day, we have politicians from a party whose constitution says, this is Likud I'm talking about here, Netanyahu's party, says that from the river to the sea, the whole land should be Israel. It's completely topsy-turvy. And everyone in the public should know this, right? But I think if you ask the majority of the public, they say, oh, Hamas don't want a two-state solution, but Israel do. No. Completely false. An announcement for you, regular viewers will know we are trying to increase our regular subscribers by 5,000. So our paying supporters, by 5,000, so we can get in tip-top shape to continue reporting on the Gaza war and also for a likely general election next year. We had a sort of in-between goal. What do you call it? A sort of in-between. I'm going to call it an in-between goal to get to 3,000 new supporters. And now we have hit it. This is a big deal because it means we're over halfway to our final target. Of course, thank you to all 3,056 people who have become a new paying supporter to Novara Media. If you are one already, thank you so much. You have made this show possible and you continue to make these shows possible. If you haven't already and are considering or willing to sign up as a supporter, you can go to novaramedia.com/support. You can sign up for as little as £1 per month. The link to that, as ever, is in the description.